You're scolding my son over and over for the same thing. Besides, you're a useless employee who gets moved to a different department every year." Thinking his son was being insulted, he said something outrageous. "You are fired. How dare you? Where's my grandson?" "What, your grandson? Who exactly?" "That's a boy named Joel Brown and a good worker. He wouldn't miss work on the day I'm back." Chairman Smith's words left VP White pale and speechless. Joel was unfairly fired by VP White. In the dead silent office, Jack's voice echoed. "My name is Joel Brown. I'm a 30-year-old office worker. Since I joined the company at 22, I've been moved to different departments every year, so they call me a wandering employee. It's not like I enjoy wandering around. Department changes aren't something a regular employee like me can decide. And it's not like I'm being targeted by upper management either. Employees with some power are rotated through departments to gain various experiences. It's like a one-year training program. Of course, if someone doesn't want to change departments, they can stay. As for me, I've been in the IT department, management, sales, and now I'm settled in accounts. Having been through various departments, I understand the workflow well and enjoy using my experience. When I need to request documents, I know people in most departments, making it easy to ask for favors. Understanding the challenges of each department allows me to suggest solutions, offering flexibility. The accounting department, dealing with money and many approvals, involves detailed work. If I understand the documents, it's not difficult. Complex calculations are unavoidable, but it's satisfying when the numbers match perfectly. I thought I was suited for diplomacy, but I enjoy working with documents and numbers, understanding workflows. Unless a new department or interesting job appears, I might stay in accounting and discuss it with my boss. As I pondered this, the season for new hires arrived, and our accounting department got a new employee. "I'm Jack White. Nice to meet you." His nervous greeting and halting words warmed our hearts. So, when someone chuckled, it wasn't in a bad way. It was just a friendly reaction to the cute new employee. But the moment that laugh was heard, the mic was snatched from Jack's hand with a bang. The person who took it was the VP who introduced the new employees for each department this term. Everyone was in a stir, wondering what happened, while Jack's face turned pale. He looked really bad. "Who laughed at my son just now? If anyone does that again, there will be consequences." The VP's voice was so loud it made the mic screech, drawing everyone's attention from the VP to Jack. Feeling sorry for him as he looked down in embarrassment, I thought it was unfortunate. At least, it wasn't his fault. However, now that everyone knew he was the VP's son, he would likely be avoided. As for Jack White, the new employee, he seemed very hard-working to me. But perhaps because he was a bit timid, he had trouble asking others for help when he didn't understand something. Whenever I saw him looking lost, I tried to talk to him as much as possible. "What's up? Is there something you don't get? Hang on, it's here but the numbers don't add up." "Okay, in this case." I pointed to each re-entered number, confirming one by one. "I got it, this is the mistake." "Right, when the numbers don't match, start by checking from the beginning." "Got it." Jack diligently wrote down my advice in his notebook, reviewed the manual, and highlighted important sections. He's a good, earnest kid, I thought. He's a bit timid, but he takes what he's taught seriously and shows a desire to learn. However, he's a bit clumsy and inefficient. He struggles with interpersonal relationships, avoiding talking to senior staff with harsh tones. Moreover, the fact that he's the VP's son, as revealed during the introduction, doesn't help. Rumors spread that he got the job through his dad's influence, making his peers avoid him. Managers and department heads also hesitate to guide him, fearing repercussions. Sensing this, Jack becomes more withdrawn, which affects his work, leading to more mistakes and constant apologies. He had a habit of apologizing. Everyone makes mistakes, you don't need to apologize so much. Okay, but if I don't do well, my dad will cause trouble for everyone. Mistakes are natural for newcomers. Sure, some people get angry, but you have to get used to that. His peers might say he got in through connections, but there's nothing wrong with that. Having such connections is important, and he's not the only one who got in that way. Anyway, don't worry too much. It's our job as seniors to help with rookie mistakes. Encouraged, Jack finally seemed a bit brighter. Currently, I'm fixing the numbers he mistakenly submitted. Reflecting is important, but using it for the future is what matters. Really, I'm sorry for all the mistakes. Noticing his mistake again, he apologized just as, "Hey, what are you doing?" A shout and a hard slap on my shoulder startled me. I almost entered the wrong numbers. When I looked up, there stood VP White, visibly angry. "Dad, this isn't what it looks like." "Be quiet, is it you, the one spreading rumors about my son getting in through connections and making lots of mistakes?" "No, sir, I was just teaching him how to do it." I tried to explain that I was just doing my duty as a senior. "Shut up, you made him apologize. What is there to apologize for if you're just teaching him?" "That's not it." "I'm sorry, I'll be more careful next time." VP White probably only heard Jack's apology, not our conversation. It wouldn't be easy to clear up the misunderstanding, and it wasn't good for Jack to stand out anymore. So, to calm things down, I apologized, and VP White seemed to back off for now. However, he glared at me and said, "When training juniors, make sure you do it thoroughly. Jack, it's lunchtime, let's eat together." He called out to Jack. It was about 5 minutes before lunch break, but within acceptable limits. I nodded at the confused Jack, and he bowed to me before leaving with VP White. I let out a big sigh. For Jack, VP White's actions were nothing but harmful. However, I thought that once Jack became competent, things would settle down. At that time, I had no idea VP White's actions would escalate. After that, trouble followed Jack. Because he was timid, his father worried about him and meddled everywhere, ignoring Jack's opinions and wishes. VP White's interference annoyed the employees. As a result, no one bothered with Jack anymore. He became isolated, and having lunch with his father made it hard to make friends. One day, I saw Jack eating lunch alone in the cafeteria. "That's rare. You're alone today. Mind if I sit here?" "Oh, yeah, my dad's on a business trip. Please." After Jack's response, I sat next to him at the counter by the window. I always ate in the cafeteria for convenience, but Jack's homemade lunch was quite elaborate. "Your lunch looks great. Did you make it yourself?" "Yes, my mom loves cooking and always makes it special." When I complimented his colorful lunch, Jack replied happily. "I see." I had heard that VP White had a homemade lunch every day, but I didn't know his wife was such a good cook. The presentation was so good it could pass for a restaurant meal. But others find it off-putting, saying it's the same as the VP's lunch or a fancy restaurant bento. "Yeah, this is impressive. How about just telling them your mom is amazing?" They still don't believe me, and if there's a fuss, my dad will come again. I see. It's a vicious cycle. Jack seems troubled by his dad's actions, but given his quiet nature, stopping his intense father would be tough. Well, I'm just envious you have a mom who can make such a great lunch. At my house, I'm told to make my own meals since I'm old enough. Since I can't cook, I rely on the cafeteria. I'm glad to hear that. Jack, eating his lunch with a happy expression, said with a childlike smile. After all, he's just a new grad. Yet, everyone avoids him. Without the VP issue, he could have made friends with his peers and colleagues in the accounting department. As I pondered this while eating, Jack said, "By the way, I've never tried the cafeteria food. Is it good?" "Yeah, a nutritionist supervises the menu, so it's varied and pretty good for a company cafeteria." "Really? I'd like to try it sometime." While chatting, we decided to swap a dish. We exchanged pieces of omelette. "Wow, it's really good. If you can eat that every day, you don't need the cafeteria." Jack's gourmet approval of the cafeteria's omelette was nice, but his mom's homemade omelette was on another level. It tasted like something from a high-end inn. We shared our thoughts and left the cafeteria. Later, rumors spread that I had stolen Jack's lunch. VP White, furious, called me in and scolded me harshly. Even though Jack and I explained the truth, he wouldn't listen, and the misunderstanding deepened, leaving us distressed. In the end, no one wanted to mentor Jack, not even the supervisors. So, I, now somewhat used to VP White's yelling, continue to help him. VP White has been complaining to the managers to replace the employee mentoring his son. But everyone refuses, and there's no one better suited. The manager understands that VP White's demands are unreasonable, so he's ignoring the issue. While the managers are struggling, it's clear that Jack, looking apologetic every time, is the real victim here. I really am causing trouble for everyone, aren't I? Don't worry about it. Everyone causes trouble sometimes. You're still new, so it's expected. I'm always sorry for everything. That habit of apologizing isn't good either. You don't need to apologize if you haven't done anything wrong. Really? Yes, you apologize too much. It's natural to feel conscious of others, but you're doing fine, so be confident. Jack may be clumsy and inefficient, but he makes up for it with his sincerity. He worries about not getting things right the first time, but that's okay. He can just ask questions and learn each time. He usually grasps things by the third time and can apply his knowledge. It takes time, but he's worth the effort to train. He just had bad luck so far. Places where they expect you to learn after seeing something once or learning by watching without being told. Schools can be like that too. They cater to students who can keep up, leaving slower learners behind. Jack is that type. His habit of apologizing and repeatedly asking the same questions got him scolded so much that he hesitates to ask anyone for help. If he had supportive teachers, it might have been different. But VP White apparently meddled in his school life too, making teachers and students keep their distance from him. My parents were hands-off, but having an overprotective, overbearing parent like his is problematic. Anyway, you need to show you can handle things on your own. Yes, if they recognize me as competent, then maybe. So, to help Jack become competent quickly, I took a somewhat tough approach to teaching him, and he accepted it. As a result, he quickly improved, and the department's attitude toward him started to change for the better. Then the incident happened. You made the same mistake again. I mentioned before that this spot is tricky. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I did it again. Just the usual guidance. When I pointed out the mistake in the part he struggled with. Enough, cut it out. Suddenly, my shoulder was yanked back, and I almost fell off my chair. The voice, of course, belonged to VP White, who looked angrier than usual. You're scolding my son for the same thing over and over, besides. You're a useless employee who gets moved to a different department every year. It's not because I'm incompetent that I was moved, but explaining here would be pointless. As I watched, he said something outrageous. You are fired, know your place. The office fell silent. As a VP, he does have the authority to fire a regular employee like me. Although it's socially complicated to fire someone on the spot. I patted Jack, who was speechless at his father's words, on the shoulder. Don't worry, it's going to be fine. But, after reassuring the pale-faced Jack, I called out to the manager. So, it looks like I've been fired, so I'm going home. Normally, there would be a lot of paperwork and procedures, but no one bothered to prepare anything. The manager, holding his head in his hands, quietly said, Just go home for today. It'll be sorted out in 3 days. Understood. I quickly tidied up my desk and left early. 3 days later, even though I was told I was fired, I hadn't submitted any paperwork, so technically, I was still an employee. I still had my employee ID and could enter the building. Even if they suddenly fire me for such an unfair reason, the process to officially terminate employment takes time. There are forms to fill out, documents to submit, and things to return or dispose of. Switching insurance and other administrative tasks also take time and effort when terminating a full-time employee. VP White has the power to fire someone, but even he can't speed up the bureaucratic process. No one is likely preparing my termination papers, and even if some uninformed employee did, the manager would surely ignore it. VP White might be calm without my presence, but someone who would cause a bigger commotion in my absence was due back today. To prevent that, I had no choice but to show up for work today. I quietly opened the office door and peeked inside. There was Chairman Smith, back from an overseas trip, giving a speech to the employees. After finishing his speech and receiving applause, the chairman headed to the accounting department. VP White followed closely behind. By the way, Chairman Smith, my son is currently working in the accounting department. I'd love to introduce him to you, he said with a big smile. Really? What a coincidence. There's someone I'd like to introduce as well. Half listening to VP White, Chairman Smith looked around the accounting department and said, Where's my grandson? What, your grandson? Who could that be? Yes, a boy named Joel Brown. He's a good worker and should be here on the day I return. VP White's face turned pale at the chairman's words. Wait, Joel Brown, the one who changed departments every year? Yes, exactly. We moved him around to learn different jobs. Now he seems to like the accounting department. Chairman Smith's face was full of grandfatherly affection as he spoke. After looking around for a while, his eyes met Jack's, and he asked, Are you a new employee? Do you know where my grandson is? Everyone's eyes turned to Jack. I thought I should step in to help him out. But just as I entered the office, Jack spoke loudly to the chairman, in a way I'd never heard before. Mr. Brown was unfairly fired by VP White. Jack's voice echoed in the suddenly silent office. Chairman Smith was the first to react. He grabbed VP White's shoulder with enough force to crush it. His face turned into a mask of fury, causing several employees to look away in fear. It was genuinely terrifying. White, my grandson was fired. May I ask why? Well, it was because of his excessive guidance towards my son. That's not true. Mr. Brown was always patient and dedicated in teaching me. Jack was the one who firmly contradicted his father in front of his terrifying grandfather. Despite his shaking, he spoke out because he had his own thoughts about my dismissal. Seeing my junior stand up like that made me happy. Are you White's son? Yes, I am. Mr. Brown's dismissal is clearly unfair. He has never done anything to make me uncomfortable. Even while trembling, Jack met Chairman Smith's fierce gaze and spoke firmly. I see. My grandson has a good junior. The heavy atmosphere eased, and the chairman released his grip on VP White's shoulder, returning to his usual gentle expression. All right, Joel, could you explain? Chairman Smith then turned to me, as if he knew I had quietly entered the office. But his eyes weren't smiling at all. After a moment's thought, I glanced at the manager. The manager immediately advised the chairman. Chairman, with everyone watching, please use the conference room. I have secured permission, so you can use it right away. With that, the manager handed the conference room key to Chairman Smith. Yes, thank you for your consideration. Everyone involved, follow me, said Chairman Smith, briskly heading toward the conference room. Jack placed a hand on his chest, took a deep breath, and then followed the chairman with determination. VP White stared at his son, seemingly taken aback by his resolve. VP White, don't just stand there, let's go. I gently tapped his shoulder, and he flinched in pain, before giving me an intense glare. You never told me you were the chairman's grandson. I wasn't hiding it, those who know. At least the executives close to the chairman knew. VP White, still glaring, followed Chairman Smith. Watching them, I leisurely trailed behind. As everyone entered the room, Chairman Smith called out, Joel, hurry up. I quickly walked to the conference room. Now, where to begin? What exactly happened here? Chairman Smith, seated at the head, asked in a commanding voice. VP White hurriedly started explaining. Forgive me, I didn't know he was your grandson, but it's true that he mistreated my son. VP White said, glaring at me with hatred. You were pressuring him. No one else has ever been seen training my son. I've told you many times, that's a misunderstanding. Be quiet, Jack. Jack bravely raised his voice, but Vice President White shouted at his son and silenced him. VP White, that's precisely why no one else has been training Jack. What? How dare you? What do you mean by that? Exactly what I said. If he makes a mistake, I correct him. If he does well, I praise him. I make sure he doesn't repeat the same mistakes. That's basic. I spoke as if it was the most natural thing. Because it was. You can't train someone without that. But every time I pointed out a mistake, you stormed in and shouted at me. That's because Jack is timid, and you were too harsh on him. No one wants to train a new employee if it means getting yelled at and glared at by you. VP White fell silent at my words. He probably didn't realize it, but his actions appeared that way to other employees. As a result, Jack is isolated because of this. That's not. Wait, what about the accusation that you stole Jack's lunch? I told you, I just asked to swap dishes because I'd never tried the cafeteria food. Jack immediately defended me. Besides, while you're here, it's fine, but when you're on business trips, Jack eats alone, keeping distance from his colleagues. What? How did that happen? Because you made a big deal about him being your son when he joined. Now, he's treated differently by the employees. VP White looked shocked at his son, who slowly nodded. I was just trying to protect him because he's quiet and I didn't want him to be looked down on. But when you speak out, it feels like a threat to regular employees. Naturally, no one wants to approach him. VP White hung his head at my words. I understand most of it, but why did this lead to Joel's firing? I'm sorry, it's my fault for making the same mistake repeatedly. Jack repeatedly bowed his head to Chairman Smith. Seeing this, VP White seemed flustered, and I was starting to get annoyed. It was time to lay everything out. "Jack, that's enough. This isn't something you should be apologizing for." Jack looked up, startled by my words. "And VP White, stop panicking. This situation is a result of your years of over-interference and not listening to Jack." "Whoa, what do you mean by that?" "Jack's habit of over-apologizing. You likely misunderstood because of that habit, but it's your fault he developed it." VP White looked shocked at my words. "I never forced my son to apologize." "No, but your actions led him to develop a habit of apologizing excessively for the trouble caused by your interference." "Jack, is that true?" After a moment's thought, Jack responded to his father's question. "Maybe I didn't realize it myself, but if I didn't do things right, you'd come, and people would get yelled at." Jack's trembling voice managed to string the words together. "That's why, when I made a mistake or failed, I started saying sorry and excuse me out of habit." "I see." VP White hung his head at Jack's words. He finally realized that what he thought was helpful had ultimately harmed his son. "I understand. So, you misunderstood that your over-apologizing son was being mistreated by Joel." "Yes, that seems to be the case. Seeing my son apologize so much, I let my anger get the best of me and impulsively decided to fire him." VP White straightened his posture, adjusted his appearance, and then bowed deeply to Chairman Smith and me. "I sincerely apologize for hurting your grandson due to my misunderstanding and for deciding to fire Joel unfairly." Seeing his father, Jack also bowed his head. "I'm sorry I couldn't stop my father. If I were more competent and recognized by him, this wouldn't have happened." "Jack, you thought that way?" VP White looked surprised at his son's confession and then sighed. "I really didn't see anything, did I?" Jack looked at his father with concern as VP White displayed a self-mocking expression. "Well, from here on, discuss and resolve this as father and son. Also, Jack, there's one more thing I want to say to you." Perhaps because of the slightly sharp tone, Jack flinched but turned his gaze to me. "I'm sorry, what is it?" "Yes, that's exactly it. We need to fix that. First, stop saying sorry all the time. I want you to be mindful of this." "I'm sorry, I mean." Seeing Jack confused by my words, I smiled and said, "When a senior gives you advice, don't say sorry. Instead, say thank you." "Okay, thank you." Hearing that, I finally felt satisfied. So, after all that, I continued working in the accounting department as if the whole firing incident had never happened. Recently, Jack has become much more active and has settled well into the department. VP White no longer barges in to check on his son. During lunch breaks, Jack reports to his father about his work progress and what he wants to do independently. Seeing Jack grow more confident has become VP White's new joy. With everything resolved, I continued enjoying my work in the accounting department. However, since my grandfather, Chairman Smith, returned, things have been more challenging for me. My father, being an only son, married into my mother's family, leaving the question of who would inherit the business. When I decided to leave home to pursue a normal career, my grandfather didn't let me go unnoticed. Thanks to him, I joined this company and gained various experiences. Perhaps my interest in helping Jack stemmed from seeing a bit of myself in him. I also got into this company through my connection as the chairman's grandson, and at first, the managers treated me with kid gloves. My grandfather wanted to promote me quickly to groom me as his successor. However, I insisted that I would not accept any promotions until I thoroughly understood what we were doing and how we were making money. As a result, I moved through various departments, learning and understanding what this company is about. I slowly climbed the ladder, and once I felt confident that I could handle the responsibility, I was open to taking over. When I explained this to my grandfather, he reluctantly agreed and promised to watch my progress. And now, I'm convinced, Joel, you can take on a managerial role. Why jump straight to manager? You are skipping over supervisor. Alright, then, with the next assignment, you'll be a supervisor. I felt a bit trapped. It was a conversation that naturally led to such feelings. When I told Jack about it, he said, "Congratulations. I will do my best to keep up with you and follow in your footsteps." Somehow, it felt like we had found a future leader. So, I decided to give it my all. I didn't have a specific goal before, but this situation helped me find my purpose. I want to take over this company, reassure my grandfather, and build a bigger company with my colleagues. With this determination, I decided to climb the ladder a bit faster,